I've lost my job. I don't know when it's gonna start back up again, and I don't want to go outside because if I get this, I have asthma, and I don't know how I would pay for it with my job gone. I don't know what to do. Now you teach crisis intervention de-escalation skills. Why do you believe that these skills are so essential as we cope with this coronavirus pandemic?
Every single one of us can be pushed into a crisis situation. And when we are so emotionally wound up, we are so physically wound up that we can't think straight, we have trouble making decisions, we feel just completely out of sorts. And it's so essential to be able to work with somebody else and be able to bring them down emotionally so that they can start thinking in options and can figure out, okay, what's the next thing that I can do?
So you usually teach these in a classroom setting. So at this point where we are all staying in our homes, how are you able to teach this remotely on the web?
So I started thinking, how can I possibly teach this in more of a remote setting? And I went back to a way that I used for years working with atypical children on how to teach abstract concepts to concrete learners. So the whole thing has to do with clay lessons.
We hold these thoughts truths to be self-evident.
We hold these truths to be self-evident.
That means no-brainer. That all men are created equal.
I use Play-Doh instead of clay just because it's colorful and it's inexpensive. And we start by literally rolling out the Play-Doh so that it's long ropes. And these ropes are like the thickness of a pencil or a pen. Then I create letters to create a word. And then I also have to create something out of Play-Doh to represent what is the meaning of that word. But what that does for a concrete learner is it helps them understand that this word means this. And because I created it myself, I start to link the two. I wonder if I could teach crisis intervention skills in the same way that I use that technique to work with children.
All right. So now, are there any rules for these clay lessons?
There are a few rules. There are not many rules in working with clay, but there are a few. And one is that everything has to be three-dimensional. So when I'm rolling out those ropes and I'm creating words, we don't want somebody to flatten those out. When they flatten them out, it means you're going from a three-dimensional perception of something to a two-dimensional one. And that's not what we want. We want three-dimensional. It starts building a new way of thinking certainly for a child. It doesn't matter for a child if they roll out the ropes or not. What is important though is if a child is going to create a word, the verticals really have to be vertical. The horizontals really have to be horizontal. X's really have to be a very distinct X. And a circle has to be as round as you can possibly make it. And the reason for that is that many children can create something out of clay. They can then close their eyes and they can literally see what they just created. We don't want it sloppy because then that's what they're going to remember. We need it to be straight up and down, horizontal, the X's, and a round circle. And whatever the definition is, it needs to be three-dimensional. So one of the simplest ways we start is to create my own name. That's me. Now I have to create something that represents me. And so we create a little tiny person that will represent that child. So the simplest is you roll out a ball, a large ball for the base. You roll out a smaller ball for the head. You plop that on the base and you pinch out the arms. And that makes a very, very sturdy and steady little person. And the reason we start like that with the name of who I am and me representing a person, is from that moment on, I could honestly act out a scenario with a child. I could even put other people within the scenario. So I could reenact a situation that has happened, and then I could also recreate it with the child's input on how could we do it different next time.
So while we're all here at home, what kind of things could we use for this clay?
So it needs to be anything that's soft, that's pliable, and that can hold its shape would work. I just find Play-Doh works the easiest. Clay lessons work because they're novel. They capture your attention and they keep you in the present moment. You get an overview. You're above, looking down, on top of what you're creating. So it changes your perspective. And it's a positive physical experience that you can have with another person. And it's fun. So it's pretend play. We're playing and learning at the same time.
I love this. I mean, this makes a lot of sense. I think people are really, really going to be able to get help from this.